Hello and welcome back to this edition of Daily Actives brought to you by Bootleg Macro. I'm Dustin. We're going to take a look at Open. Open has had a absolutely huge day based on the data that I've seen. The first thing that I like to look at is the actual trade range itself. I'm looking at what is a 9-month chart here, but if we look at it even closer, what you can see based on what we're looking at here in Open is that the top of the range, the bottom of the range were incredibly tight, which means that volatility was really low. It looks like the beginning of May, June, and July, and then in the middle of July, somewhere around the 14th, we've completely exploded. Looks like the 21st was huge. We probably based a little bit here, and now we are breaking out again. If we look at it on the candlestick chart, what's obvious to me as well is that the bullish sentiment that started here, the very first day was on July 27th, has continued to run. We saw bullish sentiment close at 56 cents. This thing has not broken sentiment since and continues to just break out to higher highs. What I love to see as well is that the volume, while the price is essentially going sideways to down, the volume was below the 3-month moving average here, the 60-day moving average. So it was a little under that 200 million. And over the past 3 days, we've started to see this acceleration to a breakout. We've seen a massive explosion in volume again. We're essentially up 100% if we're at 420 and 405 million shares traded over the past 2 days. The thing that I like too is what I'm looking at here, this graph is a representation of sentiment based on price movement. So when the green is above the black line, that means that you have majority, you have 60 to 70%. It looks like here it's going to be bullish price movement. If you had the red being majority or pushing down into the 30s, you could see obviously the same thing. Now we're looking at on the daily, which is going to be looking back in the past 23 days. I think you want to look at just a little bit outside of a month, and then you can see we're over the 15 days. This is just a little inside of 1 or 3 weeks. The reason I like to look at it is because it gives me an idea of when am I starting to see things that are dropping in terms of what could be happening over the month that are just going to be things that I'm going to ignore in the daily activity. And if we're going to be honest here and we start to look at where that was the type of movement that we were seeing here. It looks like on the 6th, 7th, and 8th. We're looking at that sentiment. We were coming down from the top here, obviously. We were coming down from the 24th, which again, if we look at that price, the 21st was the really big day, but we were coming down. We essentially based here. It looks like, again, 7th. The very bottom was the 8th. The 11th was a little bit higher. We've been moving up ever since. So essentially, it was like, okay, as soon as we get to this Friday, now we've got a nice move on Monday. It's time for things to start kicking back up. And what I like is that essentially, if I'm looking at the day sentiment, we haven't gone under 50% since it looks like the very beginning or the very end of June on the 26th was the day we broke up above 50%, and we have not broken below it. It's fantastic to see. Now, if we're looking at the volatility here, this is my own custom volatility that I built here. One of the things that is really important to me is that when I'm looking at what's happening with price, I think when the volatility here in my custom volatility is falling, that is when trend exposes itself. Now, I do understand that what we were seeing here in terms of this run up, if I look at some of this is a run up in volatility, but I'm not concerned about that because I do think that whenever volatility gets down to a bottom level, that is when you can see a full trend change. Okay. So the biggest thing to me is that we saw here on the 10th it correlates to where we start to see a massive breakout in price to the upside, which if we start to really look back at what has been the past 6 months was the real break in the trend. Because if we look previously from the first year, so in January all the way through, it looks like the very end of June, we essentially saw bearish momentum. That's what that red line means right there underneath versus the green line is the bullish sentiment. The red bars are bearishness, the green lines are bullishness. You can see it essentially, and you can see it even in this daily sentiment indicator back here. We were completely underneath the 50% line. We were kind of hovering around it, and then we've broken out and haven't really been able to go back below since. And what I'm looking at here is that while we were dropping here in this volatility, we were seeing a little bit of that price movement that was happening. But then when we got down to this zero, the trend is reset and we got an explosion to the upside. And what is that price? So what I'm liking now is that we peaked in our volatility here on the 5th, which is what you'd expect because the trend really wants to go higher. So anything that's counter trend to that would essentially be volatility. Now when we start to see the volatility fall, we're going to start breaking out higher. And I love to see that correlated with the actual volume itself because these are really good indications of what we would expect, which is why if you look at the future price path here, you're seeing that price to rise since the 12th. Now, if I'm looking at the actual data that's underlying all of this, I generally will go from left to right. I'll go from my volume or my close to my volume to my day sentiment. The very first thing I want you to notice is that we do have this color guide up here. The reason why I have a color guide is because I wanted people to understand when you're looking at the close price, what does that mean? Like today, the price was up. It looks like 19.24%. No shit, Sherlock. This is significantly high in where the range is. It's not extremely high. It's not that it can't go higher, but generally I'm trying to buy things, especially if they're bullish in the normal range or moderately low. So I want to see that green with the black background like we've seen here. It looks like we saw that essentially since the 29th of July all the way through what looks like the 13th of July. That was the period in which, since I believe that this has still been bullish, which I can see here, my day sentiment, as well as even if I'm not looking at it from that perspective, I would know that if I was looking at my day sentiment here, where we were above the bullish line the entire time. So this is when I just want to call that out because when I'm looking at this price, I want you to be aware of what it means when we see red lettering or red background with black lettering. It means it's significantly high. I'm going to be expecting a pullback. I mean, this thing is well above the top of its range right now. It looks like the trade level's at 242. That's going to come up very, very quickly. The bottom of the range is going to be diving lower because the volatility has essentially broken out in terms of how the price has been moving, which is why when you look at the lines in terms of this range, you're starting to see them run away from each other. One's going higher, one's going lower. All I'm going to care about under these circumstances with open, which I do believe that we're going to see some higher moves here, is I want to start to see higher highs in the top of the range. The bottom of the range, I'm not going to be concerned about. And I want to make sure that we are maintaining a new average volume that will probably be above that 205 million because I want to see it at least 300 million pretty much every single day. If it does start to drop and does start to fall where we get back with the green lettering or the green background with the black lettering means it's in the normal range, I'd feel very, very comfortable if it did actually see volume that would start to get under 100 million for a little bit there. But that would mean that I'd have to be buying only on a pullback. I'm going to be looking for when it's going to be down on a couple of them. But right now it's positive on the 1 day, 5 day, 15 day, 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month. So I do like what I see here. Now, if you made it this far in the video and you're like, oh, this is kind of a cool tool, you can always go to traderanges.com and you can sign up for free. If you have a Google account, so like a Gmail, you can log in. What you do get is you'll get 30 of them, 30 searches a day. If you want to get the premium version, which you can see here, you can always go ahead and follow what I have is called Mystery Stockbot here on Twitter. If you go ahead and enter in a guess, you'll have to sign up. But if you go in and you enter in a guess, you'll be brought to the page here. You can submit your guess for whatever the mystery stock is. You can just go ahead and follow Mystery Stockbot. You can see that there was this mystery that came out today, and then it was released which stock this was. It was UNH, which has had a very good run recently. So if you want to go ahead and you want to get a free month of premium, feel free to go to traderanges.com/mystery. If you want to just come check it out, you can get up to 30 different searches. You can add some things to your portfolio. Look at open for yourself. Just go ahead and go to traderanges.com. I'll talk to you soon.